Hi, welcome back to my channel, Manga Hoarder. My name is Laura, and today I'm doing a tag video. This is the hand-me-down tag. It was created by SimplyGee, and I really like this tag, and I'm glad to be doing it. It's a pretty short one, so I think the video will be quite short, but it's a tag that I'm hoping that everyone who is making manga videos will do. I don't think he specifically tagged anyone to do it, but I'm going to tag a whole bunch of people because I think that this is a really good tag, that we need to be sharing this information. I think it's a really useful tag, particularly in helping out new collectors, new readers in manga. So basically what this is to give one piece of advice, one solid piece of advice for a new collector, as well as relate it back to your own personal experience. Which is very doable. It's very tempting to give you all the pieces of advice because I have a ton of it. I could, you know, talk about advice for hours, but I'm not going to do that now. I was actually planning on doing something similar later, so maybe I'll still continue to do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a piece of advice that you probably haven't heard from anyone else. I think the main one, and I think it's more important than what I'm going to tell you, is to stick to a budget and be very strict with yourself. Never go over budget. It's not worth it. Manga is not an essential for your life. But that's not my advice. It's just sort of the thing that everyone will tell you, probably. The thing that I'm going to tell you is I would recommend, particularly if you're brand new or your collection is quite small, is not to buy manga out of order. The problem with manga is that you know that in the majority of cases, every single volume makes up sort of a chapter of the story or a part of an arc of a story. They're not generally self-contained. There are a few titles where that sort of happens. Yotsuba kind of happens that way, self-contained stories, although it does tend to build on itself slightly. 4-koma manga, where they're sort of more joke-based manga, do tend to be a little bit more episodic in nature. So there are some that are out there that are like that, but in general, manga are long stories. When I think about manga, I think about a novel, and one series, you know, whether it's 4 volumes long or 40 volumes long, one series is one novel. And so if you take out one volume of manga, that's like removing a chapter. And so you've removed a significant portion of that story that might sort of be the clue to what happens afterwards. And so if you miss buying that volume, you miss being able to really read and understand the story. You know, sometimes it's tempting because you'll see maybe a good deal, or you're kind of interested in picking up a title and you see, oh, there's volume 5 there. I've been really wanting to read the series, and you might buy volume 5. But then if you go back, you might find, oh, this is out of print. I can't get this anywhere. It's not anywhere in stores, and you're unable to read that manga. So I'll give you an example. I, for example, bought this series. It's called Penguin Revolution. I bought it in store, and I did buy it sort of closer to when it was finished publishing. This first volume here was published in 2007. I have never read it because I have still never found volume 1, it's a little bit frustrating, but because my collection is large, I at least have something else I can read, and I can wait. You know, I don't mind. I can wait 20 years before I find volume 1. That's not a big deal for the way that I collect. But I think I'm in a really special situation where my collection is enormous, and I've been collecting for so long, and so I have a ton of out-of-print things already because I bought them when they were new. When you are starting out, you're going to find that, particularly if you go to secondhand stores or library sales, or, you know, going to conventions, you're going to find a lot of random volumes of things, but you're not necessarily going to be able to find or fill in those gaps. And if your collection is very small, you have a limit to how much manga you can actually access and read. And you want to kind of be economical, I guess, in the way that you collect, so that you have more invested in series that you can read right now. And so I think that it's just a really good idea to stick to buying a series in order. And, you know, it feels like manga is always sort of staying in print. Certainly some publishers have larger print runs than others. Viz has got very strong print runs, particularly for their Shonen Jump and Shoujo Beat lines, so they're a little bit more likely to stay in print longer, so you can kind of fill in those gaps at some point. But publishers, as we know, they go to business, they change, artists drop series, there's small print runs, and if nobody is buying, then there is no further prints. So there's just all of these situations which may make a volume of manga really scarce, and it is incredibly frustrating to have a series on your shelf that is missing a volume, particularly missing a volume 1. We have found in our collection that we're missing more volume 1s and more volume 3s. Volume 3, for some reason, I think is always has a slightly smaller print run. You know, a publisher is throwing out a series, they or you know, publishing a series, they might have a 10,000 volume print run, which is enormous. There's no way that that's happening. A 10,000 volume print run, and then they might do it consistent for volume 2, but they know that readership drops off, it gets really expensive to buy more, and so then their print run for volume 3 might be 5,000 volumes, because they know they're not selling as well, and they know that people aren't going to buy as many going forward. It is very expensive to continue buying in a series. So your further volumes, of course, are going to be harder and harder to find in print. So it's just sort of something to keep in mind, that when you are collecting, particularly when your collection is quite small, to not be tempted by buying something because you see the end of a series somewhere for pretty cheap and you were meaning to buy it. It's better to start at the beginning of a series and just fill it in as the series progresses, or, you know, to buy a whole series, maybe go on eBay or something and buy an entire series in a lot, so that you're able to actually read the manga you're buying, because the reason that we're buying manga is to read it. There's no other reason to buy manga, and that's what we want to do. That's why we all love and collect manga, is because we want to read it. And if you buy it and then you can't read it because you can never find that volume, it's kind of defeats the point in buying manga. So that's my piece of advice for MSQJ's tag. And I am going to tag a whole bunch of people down below, and hopefully you will participate in this as well. If I don't tag you, I would really love to see your response to this as well, because I think that this is a really useful piece of information for new collectors. So anyway, I hope that was useful for you. Let me know your thoughts on my tip below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.